So I just wanted to make a quick video explaining the basics of cameras. So we're going to talk about shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, and what each of those relate to one another. To the Sony a7R III, now that's a 35-1.4mm lens there, and as you can see it creates a nice blur in the background, and it allows me to have an ISO of 1250 at a 1/60 shutter speed. So for this demonstration, I'm going to decrease the f-stop and kind of show you what effect it has to our image. So give me a second here. Okay, so we're going to decrease it all the way to f5.6. Okay, great. So here's 5.6. As you can see, it's very dark. You can barely see me here. So in order to fix this issue, I have to crank up my ISO. So we're at 1250, and let's see how high we have to go here. And you can tell me if you can see the image quality go down. Oh boy. Oof, okay, so my camera maxes out at 32,000 ISO, which is actually the perfect exposure for this scene. So at 3200 ISO, I'm going to now bring it back down to 1.4, and let's see how bright it becomes here. All right, the lens is wide open, and as you can see, I'm a ghost, I'm blown out. So I have to bring down my ISO again. So we got to bring down the ISO right back to 1250, and we're back to a good exposure. So that's basically what you have to be looking out for. Now, if I was taking images, for instance, I could increase my shutter speed. 1/60 is good because I'm recording at a 30 per second frame rate, and they have a rule where you just double the frame rate, and that's the shutter speed you should use for video. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate what happens if I increase my shutter speed. So let's bring it to, so this is 200th of a second. As you can see, it gets much darker. And I'm going to wave my hand. Let's let it focus. Nope, no focus. Okay, well, I'm going to wave it. And as you can see, it's pretty choppy. Now I'm going to decrease my shutter speed back to 60. You can see how there's a bit of motion blur there. Shooting video, you definitely want to have the correct shutter speed. Ooh, 1 second. There, you definitely want to have the correct shutter speed because you need this motion blur for things to look organic. Have I been shooting at 200th? I would then again have to increase my ISO to compensate for that because my sensor is being exposed to less light over time. And as you can see, there's a lot more choppiness to the image. So we'll bring it back down to its base exposure. So we're going to go to ISO 1250 right there and bring my shutter speed back to 60. And there we go. So yeah, to review, shutter speed controls the motion of your picture. So how much movement there is. A fast shutter speed, so like 1,000 of a second, you get less motion blur. A lower shutter speed, you get more motion blur. The f-stop, the aperture, is all about controlling your depth of field. A low aperture gives you a blurry background, right? Blurry hands, in focus face. If I decrease or increase my aperture here, let's go to f8. This is going to be drastic. Got to turn up my ISO right back to its max to 32,000, which is, ooh, we all the way went right in a circle there. 32,000 at f6.3. Hands in focus. Face is in focus. Oh, wait, get the face back in focus. There, background is in focus. So aperture controls how much of your photo is in focus. Oh boy. Let's go back to f1.4, turning back into a ghost, letting a lot more light in because the aperture is expanding, and bring our ISO back to 1250. So there you go. ISO controls the artificial luminance and increases grain in the image, shutter speed, motion, f-stop, depth of field. And that's pretty much all there is to it. If you're exposing for a fast scene, focus on your shutter speed. Get that to where it needs to be so you get sharp images, and then work about the aperture afterwards. If you're doing portraits and you need a nice blurry background like I do for this instance, then you focus on your aperture first and you worry about your ISO and shutter speed afterwards. ISO should always be the last part of your equation, and that's literally it. That's the three things. It took me maybe a year and a half to like grasp this concept, and now that I understand it, it's the simplest thing I've ever heard. But when I was first learning, it didn't make a lick of sense to me. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have any more questions, or I've maybe just didn't explain things properly, please let me know and I can repeat the video. I'm still learning how to do all this stuff myself. It's a fun learning process, but it's definitely interesting to put yourself out there like this. So any feedback would be welcome. Positive, negative, let me know. Thank you.